Welcome to the Court of History. The court is now in session. I am Sidney Blumenthal, and I am here with my colleague, Sean Wilentz of Princeton University. Sean, tomorrow, the Justice Department has pledged that it will release some of the Epstein files, the fabled Epstein files that it has kept secret. Almost everything Trump has done over the last period since this issue has broken out might be termed a distraction. What do you think?
That's one word for it. Evasion, cover up. I mean, there's a lot of terms you could apply. But look, it's clear that the Epstein files have him crazy. I mean, he's just very, very concerned about what might be in there, and I don't. There's no question that he has reason to be concerned because that's what evasion and cover up is all about. But we will see. I mean, so far it has not gone down very well, even with his own supporters who are worried about this. Every time he makes one of these moves, people call him out. He's not getting away with murder on this one. So we will see. But yeah, certainly doesn't want to get involved too much with this thing.
Yeah, there have been a series of polls that show that the public, by a very wide majority, believes he's hiding something, and they want to see what is in the Epstein files, including about half of Republicans. So there's no one, I think, who we'd rather have right now to discuss this issue than Congresswoman Summer Lee of Pennsylvania. And other issues as well that will affect the Congress, which will begin its session after Labor Day. Congresswoman Summer Lee has represented Pennsylvania's 12th congressional district since 2022. She is the first Black woman ever elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Before being elected to Congress, she served in the Pennsylvania State House since 2019. She's very experienced in government at all levels. And now she is the ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement. And she has been in charge, she's been the ranking member on the subcommittee that has been dealing with the Epstein files. Welcome to the Court of History, Congresswoman.
Thanks for having me. What an exciting topic.
Yeah. Well, it's on your plate. And tomorrow, these files are supposed to be made available to the Congress. Can you give us a sense of what's supposed to happen tomorrow? And I know that you issued a statement this week about how they are being redacted and the full information is not being made known to the public or members of Congress.
Yeah, so just even to clarify, when we say what should have happened or what is supposed to happen, they were supposed to release the full, complete, unredacted files by Tuesday of this week. So they're late. Right. Off top, they're late. So they've already fallen off course of what's supposed to happen, right? Comer, when we voted, we passed this motion to subpoena the DOJ for the files. That was the language in it, right? Requiring those unredacted files. Now, the only exception we have there, right? The names of the victims. This is, of course, a really sensitive topic. And I recognize, right, we've been talking about it in such a way that is, it's political football, it's political theater, but at the end of the day, we're actually talking about one of the most, unfortunately, negatively prolific and notorious sex traffickers that we have in our country's history, who isn't an enslaver. So it's a really sensitive matter. So the DOJ, Trump, and let's be clear, Trump's DOJ says that they're going to release a tranche tomorrow on Friday. We don't know what that tranche will include. We don't know who is in charge of, attempting to redact. But what we know is it is all a sort of obstruction, and we have to call it that. So we await to see what they give us tomorrow, and we're going to go from there. But we want it known that Trump's DOJ is obscuring as much of this as they can for as long as they possibly can. It's very clear that there's something that's being covered up, right? And that's what's making the American people antsy, right? Because no matter where you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, it's so clear that something is being covered up, and they're just prolonging this by doing it this way.
Yeah, there's so many questions about this. You mentioned the victims. My understanding is that some of the victims will be brought in a hearing by the Democrats on September 3rd, on the day that Congress opens. What can you tell us about it?
So, I mean, there's been a number of folks in who've been leading on this, who have been really adamant about centering those victims and making sure that, right, in the midst of all of this circus, that what they've been through isn't just being lost in the noise. And to an extent, right, that's been happening, right? That's clearly been happening. That's the nature of these things that get so politicized. But yeah, at the end of the day, here are these people who have a story to tell, if they care to tell it, right? They have insights to share. And I think that it's just really important to recenter them in all of this, to remind people that there is a human cost to this. I was talking yesterday, and when we talk about the level of scandal that we're dealing with, right? We think about, Watergate, we think about Iran-Contra, like we think about all of these major scandals, political scandals. There is no indication that this is not at that level, if not larger, right? The entire, the president, the intelligence community, the FBI director, the House Republicans, right? They are all, in essence, obscuring who did this, who all participate in the victimization of these women, hundreds of women. What level is this at? And they want an opportunity to be able to speak. So I'm happy that there have been people who have been working on that to make sure that they are not being lost in all of this mess.
You say they shouldn't be lost, but the Republicans in charge of the Oversight Committee didn't consult them at all on the Epstein files, have they?
I don't believe so. I mean, look, we know that the Republicans weren't trying to do this. Right? We got out of Congress early so that we didn't have to take any votes on Epstein, right? It was just a rising drumbeat, and they were trying to run out of town. So, right, we recognize that they've been trying to avoid this entire thing. They've been hoping that this would just fall out of the public conversation, fall out of public consciousness. It has not. It seems to be the one thing that Trump has not been able to outrun. And this from a man who, literally said out loud that he can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. And for all intents and purposes, it appears that he has been right. This has been the one thing that just will not go away from him, from his allies in the podcast world to major political figures in his own party. They've all been, laser focused on saying, hey, there's something that we need to talk about. So it hasn't gone away. Comer would love for this to go away. We know that Mike Johnson would love for this to go away. And I think that by the time we come back on September 3rd, we all know it will still be there. So I don't expect that they've conferred anyone. To be clear, they haven't even conferred Pam Bondi to make sure that her story aligns with Trump's story. So they haven't taken care to do any of that.
But you're making a really important point, Congresswoman, which is that the scandal involves not just the crimes, which would be in the files, but the cover-up as well. And everything that you're talking about is part of the scandal that involves, compared to any of the others we talked about, it involves a network of people that are everywhere in the federal government. And it's extraordinary. But it's important to keep that in mind, I think, that the cover-up, they always say the cover-up is worse than the crime. Well, keep in mind the cover-up.
I think this is one of those cases, right? The cover-up, the crime is heinous. The crime is heinous, obviously. The sexual assault and traffic of children is as heinous as it comes. But to see the protection, the level of protection afforded to these people who are powerful, who are wealthy, whether it's Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell themselves, who have been convicted, right? This isn't a conspiracy theory. They have been convicted. Or if it's a president or a prince, whoever it is, and whether it's them or just a rich guy on Wall Street, none of them should be above justice. And what the cover-up is really showing us is that there is just this willingness to protect the wealthy, powerful, even when they're dead. right? Even when they're gone, they're still bending over backwards. So whatever way Trump's in it, right? We know his name appears in it. Whatever the relationship is that he has with them, it's worth understanding why is he willing to go to such length. Like, listen, is this whatever is in that file? Could it be worse than the political hits that they're taking right now? And they're saying that it is. They're saying that whatever's in that file is worse than this political storm that they are weathering that is not going away. This is category 5, and it's just sitting here. And they're like, well, I still don't want you to see those files.
Well, that is a very acute political point that they're willing to take this kind of damage in order to cover up. And it suggests something worse. I'm reminded of the statement of the great boxer Joe Louis in regards to another dictator. He can run, but he can't hide. So let's see what happens on this one. And I just want to note and not as a footnote, that Donald Trump has been held liable in a court of law for sexual assault. And he has been said to be Jeffrey Epstein's best friend for decades. They're not calling a lot of the people who should be witnesses, the Republicans, including Alex Acosta, who made the sweetheart deal with Epstein that let him walk the first time. There are a lot of people they should be calling and who they're not, and they're calling Democrats who have nothing to offer instead to try and create a false equivalence.
And you know what I also think that is? I think that was them protecting their butts, right? When we came into that subcommittee on that day, right? It's the last day of the session. In fact, we had already, when we took that vote, we'd already voted. So folks were literally already flying either home or to their private islands, whichever one. But, when the Republicans came back to the committee, again, think about the lineup on that committee. It's a lot of the folks, Freedom Caucus, aligned folks. It's a lot of the people who had already publicly said that they want the files released, but we know why they said that, and it's because their base has been saying it. So it was all the people who are a part of that base that were just like bumblebees in the air. So they had to do something, right? So they had already been cornered. It was very clear that they were cornered, right? We call a vote, and they know that they can't vote no. So what they tried to do is they tried to say, oh, look, we're both sizing this. We don't want to give the Democrats, what looks like a political victory. So instead of just, in good faith being like, this was bipartisan, we all want this, let's do it. They just had to throw a little wrench in. But I think that that's them misunderstanding even our motive for this, right? It doesn't matter if there's a Democrat on the list. It doesn't matter if there are Democrats who are participants. At this juncture, what we are doing and why we're actually pushing for this is because we want justice completely. And they're like, well, let's throw this Democrat in, because even still their instinct is to protect Trump. And maybe that instinct is more of a self-preservation. I don't pretend to completely understand, the psyche of this cult. I don't get it. But I think that even still, they had to throw that wrench in to say that, what, we know that this is going to hurt, Donald Trump. We know this is going to hurt, and really take away from the Democrats in disarray and load it back onto the R's in disarray. So they throw that in there. They're like, let's bring in Bill Clinton. Let's bring in, Mother Teresa, whoever it is, But
she was a Democrat, but that's okay.
And not being able to just do what's right without any sort of, transaction.
Yeah. So there are a number of Republicans on the committee who have sided with you, including Thomas Massie. Where are they right now on all this?
Where are they?
Yeah. So Thomas Massie's actually not on the committee, but he's somebody who, for instance, I think he has a bill that he is trying to get a floor vote on. He's, I think, one of the folks trying to get a floor vote on a release of the files in some way. And of course, they've, closed Congress so that they didn't have to vote on any of those sorts of measures. We've seen it come through the Rules Committee, and it failed over there where they tried to get a vote on bringing in the DOJ for that. So there are Thomas Massie. Even when we say there are Republicans, there's Thomas Massie.
Yeah,
right. There's Thomas Massie because, and the Republicans who actually are on the subcommittee, I think it's Perry, Mace. Is Lauren Boebert and a couple others. Right? They also could have moved. They could have moved to do it as well, right? So that's why we say it was like there are some people who were always going to vote with us. It's like there are so many bills in Congress that if it actually gets a floor vote, I won't say there will be unanimous support, but there'll be Republicans. But they might not be the ones who are rawing it, on the front end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever talk to Republicans about how they feel about this, or are they just holding the line for Trump and they know it's all nonsense?
Right. Right.
So, my thing is that I have no evidence that they are treating this scandal any differently than they treat any other. And what I've learned from just being in office long enough, and it's like when you get fooled once, shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on me. I think George Bush said, if you fool me 3 times, I think he had gone beyond. But this is what we learn, right? Is that they always say that they care about something. We see the whole grandstanding every time we have a budget, right? Before we did the reconciliation bill, we saw the grandstanding that came from, some folks in the Freedom Caucus, some other folks in the SALT caucus, some other folks who are, just frontliners. They always do the thing. And then the media helps them do the thing. They'll put up the graphics with the Chiron. It's like holdouts, right? Republican holdouts. And at the end of the day, we do it all the time. They come in, they say I won't vote for this. They wait until we get on the floor. They get a phone call from Donald Trump. They start to get their sweetheart deals or whatever thing they need, whatever community project they need, whatever. They are holding out for that. So I've just learned to maybe not trust their public proclamations that they are caring about something. What I trust is the vote. So this is why in this instant, I would say that we expected that some of our colleagues on the other side would vote for us. I was still a little bit pleasantly surprised that they did at the end of the day. And I think it is hopefully a show that when something gets to this magnitude, even some Republicans, will recognize that common sense says that we should be moving on this. I'm not gonna apply it anywhere else though. Not yet.
Yeah. Let's put this in a larger context too, because they just passed the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, and of which you have voted against. It is, as it happens, the most unpopular piece of legislation possibly in the history of Poland already, and its full impact being has not hit yet. Tell us about what this bill is going to do and what you hear from your district about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, devastating, right? This is crisis level legislation. And I think that people in my district, and not just my district, like people across the country, every day you see more people, some people who were still maybe, hesitant to say that the Republicans did this to me, but still kind of acknowledging how bad it will be. We're talking about the largest wealth transfer from working class people to people who already have money to the ultra wealthy. This is the largest wealth transfer. This is a historic level cuts to Medicaid, historic level cuts to SNAP benefits. We're talking millions of people who could be impacted. And just the cruelty of it is that, these Medicaid recipients, they're everyday folks. They're people in our lives, our family. If it ain't you, you know somebody, right? We're talking disabled adults and children, seniors and elderly, nursing homes, right? That are right now deciding, will we even be able to stay open with these Medicaid cuts? Couple that with the cuts to SNAP. So now we're saying, you might not be able to go to your doctor, and also you won't have access to food. You don't have access to food. The burden that's going to be shifted to states will be crippling. That's just the SNAP and Medicaid benefits. The attacks on on higher education. This is going to have devastating results for working class people, first generation college students, professional students, people who want to go to medical school or law school. But when you really peel back, it's like, oh, well, what is the actual thing they're trying to do here, right? We know the cuts, the cuts to working class folks' benefits to, fund the tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. Yes. And then also funneling on the student loan side, funneling these vulnerable students who are just trying to get an education. They're trying to start their careers. They're trying to help their communities. What they're going to do is they're intentionally pushing them to private loan backers, right? Those private loan sharks where the interest rate is even more predatory than the ones we're dealing with. So all of it is bad. And it can be years before we see the full results, right? Some of this won't even take effect until 2027, which I'm sure they are doing in hopes of it. If they lose the House, is saying that, well, this is another Democrat thing. We got to keep our eyes on this one. We got to keep our eyes on this one. This is also another example of when someone shows you who they are, believe you. But they've also told us who they are. They said they were cutting Medicaid. It's the first thing they did.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, the public opinion. They did backload this stuff, so that it's not going to take effect until after the midterms. However, people are hip to that. People get it, as far as I can see in the polling. I mean, they're not hiding. People are paying very close attention to this, and they know it's going to hit them. Even if it hits them in 2 years rather than 1 year, they're going to get very, very badly hurt.
Oh yeah, but they're hoping that the media will stop talking about it. They're hoping that Democrats will stop talking about it, right? They're hoping that farmers and healthcare providers will all stop talking about it. And I think that how we make sure that they pay, that there's a not just a political cost, right? Some of these people should never be in public office again. This is a betrayal of just the trust of Americans all over this country. No one should forget what they've done.
Well, Trump, of course, campaigned and won in 2024 on the promise that on day one he would lower prices. And prices are now being jacked up already. And, benefits are being cut for ordinary Americans. And there we are.
I don't like to say that, I don't mean to be glib. I don't. I mean that very few Americans can afford the rising cost of groceries, of housing, of public transportation, of so many of the things. And this isn't just an urban city problem. This is a problem.
I was shocked going to the grocery store the other day. And a small bag of coffee cost $16.
My sister saw the exact same thing, this exact conversation. We were in the coffee aisle. She had just gotten coffee a couple weeks earlier, and she went back for her coffee and was stunned.
Yeah, it's crazy. Of course, a lot of that is also his mad tariffs.
Yeah, it'll get worse. And that's the fear, is that so many people are going to pay the price for Donald Trump's hubris. They're going to pay the price for his incompetence, but also for the villainy of those around him, because I won't pretend that everybody around him is incompetent. They're not. They are very thoughtful. They're very intentional, and their desire to hurt working people is very obvious. Their desire to, help those people in their circles, the wealthy people, from the Epstein files to the cuts that we saw in the reconciliation package. I will not call it the one big beautiful. What a ridiculous thing for serious legislators to name a bill. Won't call it that. But from Epstein to this, to everything that they're doing is just an all-out assault on working class people. Now, what we have to remind people of in America is not working class Democrats, not working class Black and brown folks, working class people in red states, in blue states, in purple states, in rural, urban, exurban, suburban communities, working class people in unions, and working class people who have been shut out of unions. Working class people, right? Whether they use or avail themselves of Medicaid or SNAP, or whether they're struggling day to day, check to check, grocery run to grocery run, right? All working class Americans are being attacked by the Donald Trump administration. And for so long, he's been able to just get away with it. For so long, he's been able to tap into culture wars. He's been able to pit different communities against other communities while he robs us all. He's telling you it's the immigrant while he's robbing you. He's telling you it's Black folks and DEI, and he's robbing you, right? He's telling you it's everybody but corporate greed, everybody but billionaires trying to get their fifth yacht, right? We have to help people open their eyes, but we also have to welcome them in when they see it.
Rural areas are going to take a very big hit. Supposedly his real base. That's really going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let me just add, Sean, I was reading an article in the London Telegraph. It is a very conservative old newspaper. Sometimes in England, they call it the Tory Graph.
The
And
Torygraph, yeah.
they ran a completely factual analysis of Trump's effect on working class Americans. And the headline in the Telegraph of London was Trump's redneck recession hits red states.
Hmm.
There you go, the redneck recession.
I mean, but to be fair, red states have historically struggled, right? This
Yeah.
isn't
Yes.
new. I think that they
Yeah.
have. There's a lot of media spin and propaganda that tells you that all the problems in American society comes from a Black urban community. But the reality is that red states, some of the reddest states, are also the ones with the highest recipients of Medicaid and SNAP benefits, the highest recipients of what we call welfare, right? Farmers who are deeply, deeply hurt on both ends of this, right? Um, these red communities have continuously been sacrificed on Republicans' never ending quest to get billionaires more, to get corporations more. And I will say that Democrats need to understand that too. Democrats have to understand that those are people, those Americans are worth courting. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that we should. I think that we need to embrace the new swing, voters. Those swing voters are not, red, red to blue, blue to red, but they're non-vote to Democrat. I do think we need more investments in them. But we also need to understand what is driving, rural communities support for Republicans, despite the fact that their communities have been disinvested, despite the fact that their subsidies are being cut, right? Despite the fact that these programs help them as much as anybody else.
Congresswoman, I wonder if you could just summarize at the end of our conversation about what we should be looking for as the Congress comes back, and what the posture of the Democrats is going to be. I mean, you've made clear that playing dead is not really a good strategy.
Yeah. I mean, so, micro level, when we come back from, our in district work period, obviously we walk back into budgets. We're always in a budget. And I regret to inform folks that, since I've been in Congress, we haven't passed one on time. I've lived in the realm of continuing resolution after continuing resolution. But that means that we're always functionally working on one. So again, where everybody is, obviously and rightfully focused on what we've lost in the reconciliation bill, is really important that we don't be discouraged and think that the game is over. We are right back on the saddle, right? We're right back into, who or what we are prioritizing. This is what this budget debate is, right? Who do we prioritize? Do we prioritize the Department of Defense, 20 times more than everything else in our society? Or do we start to think about some of the programs that work? Do we think about our climate crisis? Do we think about our students? Do we think about working class people? That's now. Macro, is this fight. We're barreling towards midterms. Um, we're in the midst of these redistricting fights in Texas and California and maybe even more states. The fight for, people, the polls will vary on whether people care about the word democracy. Whether you care about the word democracy or the concept democracy, we know that if your democracy is in decline, it takes typically 2 years to bottom out, which means that we're in a real crisis. We use the word authoritarianism, fascism, dictatorship, but we still have that American exceptionalism that makes us think that something at the end of the day is gonna come and get us, like some superhero. The Avengers are coming. That the checks and balances are going to finally snap into place. And the reality is that he has stress tested the system in such a way that nothing is coming to save us but us. The final fail-safe in democracy is, the people. It remains the people. And we need the people to realize that they are still the ones who are vested with the power to stop them, whether that be in midterms or stop them right now, whether it be in their tracks. But we have to start talking about what those organizing efforts look like. And they won't just be in the Congress, but the Congress has to embrace them. The Congress has to support those organizing efforts. We got to support our labor unions, our movement work, our civil liberties organizations that are running all of the lawsuits that are just never ending because of all of his overreach. All of that is happening at once. So it's going to be a really, really busy, I would say it's going to be a really busy end of the year, really busy 119th Congress.
Well, Congresswoman Summer Lee, we're honored to have had you and to give us your views and this preview, and to remind us that the challenge for saving democracy is on all of us who are watching this. And we're very appreciative for your appearance here. So for this session of the Court of History, the court, and on behalf of my colleague Sean Wilentz, is adjourned.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.